Welcome to P2P, producer to producteur, sponsored by the APC, l'Association des producteurs de cinéma.
I am Anouk van Ligolo, and I will be your host.
"2012 is gonna be a great year. So it is no surprise that we have chosen for our first show Jules Daly, the producer of such male-driven films as The Grey, The A-Team, The Assassination of Jesse James. So please give a warm welcome to Georges Bermann for Partisan and Jules Daly.
A job at the end of the world. I work security, protecting men from the dangers they cannot see. There's not a second goes by when I'm not thinking of you.
Going home, guys. Let's keep it moving.
Somebody will find us.
Nobody's gonna find us. Not here. We figure out one way south and we start walking.
This will be one of those wild stories you tell at a party.
What is that?
Don't move. Stay right back at us. If we can get to that tree line, we can better defend ourselves.
There they go!
Run!
You gotta be kidding me.
We can climb down. How are we gonna deal with this? We take them on, one at a time. I want to see your face, feel your hands in mine.
Don't stop! Hold on!
Don't be afraid.
We're here to talk about your new movie,
The Grey.
The Grey. It was a very ambitious movie, you know, it's very complicated to shoot. I think that I'm going to think about a movie that is impossible to shoot. Like in winter in Alaska where the days are 2 hours. And,
the more difficult, the
yes,
better.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No, I think that the conditions and the weather and the elements definitely lent, obviously, to the story. And a couple of people said, well, why didn't you shoot it on stage? Why didn't you build it? But we thought that the weather, if the men that we cast were up for what the terrain was going to be like and what the physical side of the physicality of doing a movie like that, then they were the right actors for it. But they had to be able to go the distance that way.
So how many shoot days did you have?
We shot the film in 38 days.
So everything is shot on location, nothing on stage?
No, there is some stuff on stage. The tight work around the fuselage at night,
Yes.
that was on stage.
Yes.
So anytime you saw them with the little fires around the fuselage, and the first hit, when the wolf attacks him the first time when he sees the girl, that was on stage. And the interior of the plane was on stage, yeah.
So you shot in winter? So how long were the shoot days?
Well, when we were up on top of the mountain where the crash site is, the exterior of the crash site, those days were literally maybe 6 hours of shooting. When we came off the mountain to a lower elevation where we had a little bit more, you know, it was easier to move around a little bit, those days were a little bit longer. But yeah, we were pretty much camera wrapped for the day work by 4:30, it would get dark.
So did you have snowstorms?
Twice we got taken off the mountain, and so there were a lot of real storms that you saw, which worked in our favor. We needed them.
Okay, so when it was snowing, actually it was real. You didn't fake the snow.
There was a little bit of additions on some of the tighter stuff when we added some snow, but most of the time the elements were as you saw it.
You added the snow for real, or it was on VFX?
Mostly for well, we'd add like a little bit of snow, you know, maybe across their face if it was something tight, you know, but literally it was just throwing snow. On stage, that was effects snow.
Why would they? I mean, we're not harming them. It's not for food.
We're a threat. We don't belong here, that's it.
It must have been very, very heavy in terms of logistics.
Very, very. But you know, when you shoot in a location where the crew are familiar with working under those conditions, then it's like a regular day for some of them.
To get this movie done, so you started to do, so you had the script, then you did a budget.
We broke it down.
So how much time did it take to actually figure out exactly, how much it would cost?
Well, quite a bit. We went through 2 line producers because one was going to do it the one way, and so we learned a lot by looking at it through 2 different line producers. It was actually a good education that way to see how different people would have pulled it off.
That was your original idea, to go to 2 different line producers?
No, because one was with Christian Bale and we budgeted it, and then another line producer when we re-upped it with a different.
You couldn't take the same one?
He wasn't available.
So you had to restart from scratch?
Yeah, we had a budget that we worked with that I was very familiar with and Joe was familiar with. But I don't think the production designer wasn't the same, unfortunately. The cinematographer, no, it was all different crew, other than Joe and I.
So you were directly in touch with the 2 line producers, and you were comparing the 2 budgets?
Yeah. And then we had to take the money down to get the budget, to get it made.
What's the budget? The final budget? What is it?
Well, the final budget was just under 2.7, but we made the movie for 2.5 and a bit. No, 25 and a bit.
And was it in line with what you had budgeted, or were you a little bit under or over?
We were over, and that's why I needed more money on visual effects.
And it was over because of the conditions?
I think we underestimated the work that we'd need to do when the actors got to the cliff, the wide shot of the chasm before Dermot goes across. That we needed to kind of step up the artists and the people that were involved in doing that. We underestimated. Mostly it was that we needed more money for.
This whole logistic is something that you figured out from the moment you budgeted it, or it's something that you actually fine-tuned later?
No, pretty early days, that you have to work with the crew that knows how to make movies like this. You don't take people that have never made a movie. The production designer had made a movie with Frank Marshall, Snow Zero, one of these dog movies in the snow up there. They'd worked in a similar location. So you kind of cobbled together people that, the Teamsters, the groups that know how to do work in those conditions, for sure.
But you saw the whole film in Berlin...
The year before, the February, would it be? Before,
yes,
yeah,
February,
with Bradley.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were pretty ready by then, because when you were looking for financing, you need to have a kind of clear idea of how much money it would cost, right?
Yeah, we used the previous budget, as an example.
Okay.
But it was
and it was the same, the previous budget? Okay.
I think we had estimated it would be 30 million, And then,
so you went out to get 30 million.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got 25. No?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but 5 million off of that kind of movie was difficult.
Hey, what is that?
Run! Go! Get into the tree!
Go! Oh, Jesus, they're right on us!
Don't look back!
Hey, wait! Don't stop! You see him? They're all around us!
Need a fire to keep them off us. Hurry!
When you get into a project, you have no obligation, right?
True.
So why did you go into this one, which is obviously very complicated?
I think the script, first of all, but Joe Carnahan. I think Joe would be the first. We work with Joe, and I made a very big movie with him called The A-Team, which is very different, and we had a good experience together on that one. And then this was his passion project, so I knew that he would give it everything. He wrote it as well, from a short story. And it was a little bit of a long road. We were going to make it at one point with other actors, and so it just...
You have to tell me all about it.
I will,
so
okay.
Who were the other actors?
At one point, Christian Bale was attached and wanted to do it, was very interested. And then that was just more a scheduling thing about his wife was having a child, he didn't want to travel, we were going to do it in Montreal actually. And then at one point Bradley Cooper was also wanted to do the movie, and then that also scheduling, as happens, got in the way.
You didn't feel totally depressed when you were close to go with Bradley Cooper and he said no, I can't do it. So how much how much time did you have to find somebody else?
Maybe 2 months, but then we sat with Liam and realized that he was a good idea, and then it had to move very fast.
So basically you had everything set, ready to go in 2 months, but you didn't have your lead actor.
No, we actually ended up switching out financing. So it was kind of a bigger jumble than that, because once the Christian Bale had fallen apart, we ended up going with different financing after that.
So you had already your financing in place. So basically you were covered for your pre-production costs.
Very few by then, but yes, it's that thing where you eke along, they give you a little bit to scout, a little bit to do this, a little bit, because the liability is so big, they don't want to spend too much money until they know.
And that's the bond.
And that was the bond and the financier at the time, Inferno, yeah. The bond didn't really kick in, until you have the whole package in place, right? Yes. So trying to get that money to keep the film going.
So it was Inferno who fronted it.
Yeah, and us a little bit.
You have the script, you have the budget, you have kind of the actors, or you hope that you have the actors. So financing-wise, so who's funding the movie? Who's financing the movie? Because 25 million, it's a lot.
We pre-sold the movie to a number of about, it's still a little nebulous.
But who are your key territories? So you sold it in all
Sammy Hadida was a nice territory for us.
Well, he took France and more, or just France?
Just France.
Just France?
We love Sammy. It was good to us. UK was good to us. We pre-sold. Australia was quite early. Canada, for obvious reasons, was early.
So, Canada, how much do they put for a movie like this? Because it's a kind of small territory anyway.
They were under 2. I'd have to look exactly. But I think Sammy was probably the biggest commitment.
Was the biggest.
Yeah. But he's an old friend of ours, and he believed in the movie, he loved the script. He was a true advocate very, very early, very early.
I'm very impressed because I find it very, very difficult to raise, $25 or $30 million, on an independent production right now.
It definitely was not easy. Mickey Liddell was the equity financier who was fantastic for us and who really came in and kind of rounded everything out and made that movie happen. Like that last, the equity part where you just wonder if it's going to happen, and that's somebody really writing one check that...
He was gapping the movie, basically.
Yeah, and he came up with more money towards the end for us.
So that was quite acrobatic to make all this happen.
Yeah, it was definitely the most difficult thing I've ever done and the best experience I've ever had.
You worked with studios and you did The Grey independently. So before we talk about what you prefer, what are the key differences?
You really feel like you're very exposed on an independent film because that you don't have a support system. Sometimes in the best of ways where you want to run something by somebody who's an expert head of production that can just look at something else with you a different way, or you feel you need a team to kind of help make a big decision. But then creatively, I think when you have a really great script that you just want to, you feel very strongly that it should be left alone and not have a lot of opinions and not be changed by many voices, I think it's good to be on your own.
And in production-wise, it's safer to be with the studio?
Well, I think, again, you're not as expose, like if something happens because of the weather, because of, you know, there's an obvious reason, and, you know, the contingency is kind of a built-in contingency, if you will, with the studio, even though they're still, you know, it's not just a free-for-all, but they understand when there's a big weather day or something goes wrong or an actor doesn't feel well or something, you know, where those type of changes and the way you have to adjust and be flexible on an independent film can definitely be different. And you do see some, you know, waste on a big film, you know, that is, you know, it's a big entity, a big machine that's supporting a lot of people, and you wonder sometimes where all this money goes, and then you need an extra effects shot at the end of the day, and that money at that point isn't there, but you think, well, but who are all these people, and what was everybody doing that were sitting behind the monitor when I saw them at A-Team, and they didn't, you know, like there's a lot of kind of costs that that aren't tangible as a producer on the big movies. You know?
So, okay, well, that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing this.
Anytime.